Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well and staying safe. Tonight's talk is on continuous security by Vandana Verma. Vandana is a security relations leader at Snyk with a current focus on DevSecOps. In her previous experience, she's dealt with application security, vulnerability management, SOCs, infrastructure security, and cloud security. We're super stoked to have her with us tonight. She's a seasoned speaker and trainer, having presented at various public events ranging from global OWASP AppSec events, Black Hat, and regional events, including B-Sides events in India. Vandana is also on the global board of directors at OWASP and works in various communities focusing on diversity initiatives, including InfoSec Girls, InfoSec Kids, and WOSEC. Before I hand over, I'd just like to go over some general housekeeping rules. We're broadcasting this presentation on both YouTube and Discord, but we'll be hosting a general discussion only on Discord at the end of the presentation. Feel free to come over and join us. We'll be posting a link to the Discord server in the YouTube comments, and we'll be in the Chapter AU SID voice channel. If you're on YouTube and you've got any questions, pop them into the comments and we'll read them out at the end of the talk. If you're on Discord, we ask that you stay on mute until the end of the presentation, where we will then open the floor up to questions and have a general discussion. That's everything from me. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and I'll hand over to Vandana now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jack, and Rick and Faru. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And okay. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yeah.
Great. Hi, everyone. I am really thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm really glad to be part of OWASP Sydney chapter presentation. This has been one place where I wanted to speak for quite some time now. And when Rick asked me, let's go for it. And I'm really, really glad to be meeting all the people in Sydney. So my topic for presentation today is continuous security, building into your pipelines. Now, when we talk about DevSecOps, there are multiple aspects that we take or consider. And we are going to talk about all those aspects, including the cloud aspect. So let's get into it. I'm not going to talk much about myself because Jack has already introduced me. When we talk about DevSecOps, this is like the first slide that I always use in my different presentations, building pipelines to DevSecOps to anything, because earlier dev security ops, they all were working together, working in silos. They were not working together. Then what happened? We came up with Agile, we came up with DevOps methodologies. And around like 10, 12 years back, it all started off. Now, when it started off, Dev and Ops team had to come together. They came together. Then security was at the other side. And it is not security mistake. It is not DevOps mistake. It used to happen like that. That was the culture wherein security used to think that, yes, we are the boss and we would sit in a siloed room. I remember sitting in a different room altogether where all the security people would sit. Or we were sitting in a proper way wherein, okay, this is a security bay and rest of the teams, development, operations, everyone, QA to architects to project managers would sit. But is that so? Like, is it right? Then the culture would feel like, or the people would feel like, this is what we are doing, wherein DevOps is pooping something and security is cleaning, which is totally not the case. Wherein right now, what we are trying to achieve is DevOps working with SecOps, SecOps working with DevOps, and we all are crediting each other and making sure that we have harmony. And when we start off with a typical progression for any application,
DevOps working,
it starts with
SecOps working with DevOps, and we all are crediting each other and making sure harmony.
Jack,
And when we start off,
I think I can hear myself. So when we talk about a typical testing progression, it starts with static analysis, then unit test happens, integration, acceptance tests happen. But when we talk about the feedback that comes in the beginning, it's fast, but slower it becomes. But what we need is we need visibility, which DevSecOps give us. It gives us observability, traceability, confidence, and compliance. It lets us make sure that we have the holistic picture, starting from ideation phase, wherein we are trying to get the user stories, to coding stage, to building stage, to deploying stage, to mutating, or when we are having multiple releases. Now, think about when we are trying to integrate the security into DevOps. It all starts with user stories. When client comes and says that, okay, I want something, or I want this particular feature in the application, or I want the application itself. When that comes in, at that particular time, we write down all the things that we need in the application. While we are doing that, how about embedding security to it? How about making sure that security is being checked from those user stories itself? Where exactly we need SSL certificates? Do we need SSL certificates? Is it a login based application or a feature that we need? Is it an authenticated page that we need? Is there something that will be directed to some other application or some other maybe database that will be going? So what kind of user stories that we are looking for? So it all starts from there. Then we talk about threat modeling. Now threat modeling is becoming more of a code as well, which is one good thing I really like, because when everything is becoming more of a code, we are using we're using infrastructure as a code. Yeah, can you hear me? um okay,
We just see like the first
so
PowerPoint.
you're talking about, right, I'm on this slide only, I'm just speaking, that's all.
We can just see like the first slide, like the title, and that's it.
Is it
Yeah, I think it might just be
okay?
the wrong screen.
All right. You can't see idea, code, build, deploy, manage, and learn?
We can now, but it's showing like the like not in presentation mode, just like a PowerPoint screen. So it wasn't going through the different slides as you were talking about them.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me just come back and see. Hmm. It's still showing that way. Okay, let me stop sharing and share again, because that generally don't happen. Okay. Is it better?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for reminding. Yeah. Right. So once we are talking about like threat modeling, at the time there comes a point wherein how exactly we want to do it, whether it's important or not. But it is very, very important to do the threat modeling to analyze our own applications. Then move ahead to the coding, wherein we are trying to perform the secure code reviews. For the fun fact, we used to do the manual code reviews, which has changed over the years. And people think, what should we do? There are tools, technologies which are available, which we can use and understand that, okay, this is these are the vulnerabilities in the code, and start with the process wherein we fix them and then move ahead to the further phases. That's when shift left comes into picture. But people say, is it not enough? People say, is it enough? There's so much more that goes into it. Shift left is there. Without shift left, this whole strategy cannot be fixed, wherein we are trying to enable the security teams to be part of the whole ecosystem. We cannot enable our dev to be part of the whole ecosystem, understanding the security. And at the same time, this process, why I say that it's not enough, because there are manual tests which are being done. There are result reviews which needs to be done. There are external security teams that comes into picture. There are many times wherein we take or accept the risks which we need to accept. Like is there a way? Because I've been discussing this with a lot of friends of mine, and when you talk about a vulnerability which is there in the application, half of the time they have to accept the risk, because sometimes the business can't go ahead fixing it. We don't have resources and many other things that come play a role. But when we go ahead and keep accepting the risks, what will happen? The vulnerabilities will come into picture, and vulnerabilities, uh, exploitation, I should say, that comes into picture. And one funny fact is that, okay, this vulnerability we can't fix right now. We take an approval and we forget about it. A lot of times that happen. It's as good as not doing anything. So for that, we need to have a proper process when it is going to be fixed if it goes live. And I'm in support of risk acceptance. There's nothing that I am not in support of it. But but we need to make sure that we have a proper deadline for it, or the breaches like Equifax to SolarWinds to many others will keep happening. It will be like we will be using vulnerable components with known vulnerabilities, and whatever we do, whatever cycle that we have, it is not going to be enough. And specifically, if I talk about DevSecOps, when we are trying to automate everything. And now, when we're talking about cloud native application security or cloud native DevSecOps, because we are moving towards cloud, we are using Terraforms to infrastructure as a code to many more things. Compliance as a code, policies as a code, everything is becoming like a short code. So we need to make sure we are analyzing it, or we'll just be shipping a software or an application which is vulnerable from inception. Do we want that? We don't want that. We've seen a lot of issues around applications and the biggest breaches of all times. Now, from code to Git repository to CI/CD to production, there are multiple things that goes into picture. Wherein people say that, oh, I'm running an automated scan on my code scanner, but when it comes to the whole testing phase, it is running as parallel. It is running in a parallel pipeline. Now you have set up the DevSecOps process right, because this needs to be done, that needs to be done, but they're not stitched together. There's no one pipeline. So it is like a conveyor belt on an airport, wherein we give our luggage and it goes through the conveyor belt, pass through some checks, security checks, and then it reaches the end goal, like fly through and then it reaches. But um, think of a scenario wherein it is left somewhere. There is one piece wherein broken somewhere, and from there broken piece somebody has to pick up and then put it on another belt to go to the right destination. But if that person manually doesn't pick it up or pick it up and put it on a wrong belt, will it go to the right place? No, it will not. Similarly, this DevSecOps process is like a whole process which goes in a chain, because if it is segregated, then we will only have to make sure that it goes through the right checks. And for the one more thing around this is that people say that I have a process but it's very slow. Now it is very slow because we are embedding multiple things as part of it. Now comes a point wherein we have to mature it ourselves. We can't say that, okay, there is the thing which I am using, there is a tool, there is a process that I'm using, but I'm not ready to mature it. So people have to invest a bit of time in that, to make sure that the right set of products to right set of technologies to right set of people is being used there. From coding to source control to CI/CD container and serverless security, till the notification, till the reporting, we need to make sure that everything is streamlined. You must be thinking that there are so many tools, and no one DevSecOps fit everyone. We have to accept it. What I am using right now might not fit you, or what your organization is using might not fit my organization. I might be using VS Code. Like, I'm a huge fan of VS Code, but then I can if I'm using a certain plugin that might be vulnerable. Similarly, I might be using Eclipse, or for the source code, I use Bitbucket a lot or GitLabs a lot. But you might be using Azure Repo, so you'll have to decide what exactly you want to do, when you exactly want to do, and if you are already using it, understand where exactly things can be fit in. So from code perspective, if you think about it, there are so many supply chain attacks that we have seen. Why have they come up? Why are they still coming up? And why are we going to still see them in the future? Because when we talk about the code, 80 to 90% of the code is open source. Like, that's a huge amount, and that's open source code. In our application, only 10 to 20% is the code which is written by the organization, within the organization, by the developers. So 80% of those vulnerabilities which are found, which are indirect dependencies, when that's there are so many packages that we have started using. We're talking about, we need the APIs, we need the containers, we need Kubernetes, we need cloud native environment, and it goes back to open source. That aren't we still using the open source? And now we're talking about infrastructure as a code. So if one file has some vulnerability, if there is one logic that goes wrong, goes wrong. There is one server that's pinned wrong with the wrong set of credentials, or maybe with some vulnerability in that. Aren't we in trouble? We are in trouble. And that's when, if you remember that Equifax breach, which gave us sleepless nights from using Apache. But then, is it the problem with Apache or Equifax? Who to blame for? But everybody knows that it's an Equifax breach, but it was impacted by Apache. So Apache released a fix, but then there was a delay in updating. And there are times when that happens, but what are the countermeasures that we are trying to put? How frequently we are detecting? How frequently we are updating it? So detecting fast to responding fast to making sure it happens within the organization at scale, not just one application get going through it, but the whole environment. And that's when this whole sample DevSecOps architectures come into picture, wherein we might want to use Snyk to maybe something else, maybe check marks to Snyk to maybe something else which is helpful to us. And there are so many open source tools which are available. And specifically, if I talk about software composition analysis, dependencies check is there, Snyk is there, npm audit is there. Based on the language that we are using, we can use the open source tools. And the whole process from having a repository wherein we can put the code to versioning them to moving through the whole CI/CD pipeline and updating it. It is very, very important to use the right set of technology at the right time. Now, when we are talking about this, there is a checklist that I created with open source tools, wherein how we can run an AppSec program or DevSecOps program with open source tools. Specifically, this is around OWASP because I'm a huge fan of OWASP tools because the amount of effort that has been put in it's incredible. So for requirements gathering, you can take a look at Security Rat, amazing product, amazing project, which is just let you spin this in like few minutes. Then security knowledge framework, which is like jack of all trades. Think about from requirements gathering to embedding ASVS to having the labs for people to test. So if I have to train my developers or train the people I'm working with, I would just pick up SKF and start demoing that. And they can actually do it themselves as well. And it has Juice Shop in it. Then comes the Threat Dragon and Pytium. Those are two threat modeling wonderful tools. And Threat Dragon, you can use it on your native system, and Pytium, you can use it's like more of a Python project, which you can use on the cloud as well. And for code review, there is a code review guide and framework. So these are the things that we can use as part of our own um, uh, DevSecOps program, specifically around the open source community, specifically around the open source components. Now, all of this is good. And there is one more thing which is very, very important is training for each other. We need to have awareness as well as training each other. Now, we're also doing that. But are we checking the maturity of our own DevSecOps model or posture management? People don't talk about application security or DevSecOps posture management because we don't realize that it is important. But till the time we measure it, we understand where do we stand, we would never be able to improve ourselves. There are few things which might be able to improve, but then the whole cycle needs to be improved. The whole environment needs to be matured. We don't know when something bad is going to hit us. So now when we are opening our umbrella before it rains, it is important we open it right. We can't open it like upside down. If we do it, it is just going to make us which is just going to trouble us, and that's all. So OWASP SAM is one incredible project which helps us in assessing the maturity of our own DevSecOps model. And it also gives us this is how things are right now, and this is how it can be fixed. When all of this is done, there is one amazing fact which I like about chaos engineering. You must be thinking, what is chaos engineering? In simple terms, it's a disciplined approach to identify failures before they become outages. You might have seen with some of the applications wherein they go down at the peak time or they go down at a certain time. The trouble could be anything, but the most important aspect comes is that how we can avoid it. So chaos engineering is something which helps us in doing that, figuring out before something bad happens, and thinking differently, making sure that we know our environment and we understand our own infrastructure, that what it is, how we can implement things, how we can leverage the open source tools, but making sure that we are tracking them. We are tracking any vulnerability which might be there as part of the open source component. And while doing all of that, we are embracing the automation. Because without embracing the automation, we would always be lagging behind. We will always be going slow. People say that aren't we seeing that there are a lot of breakdowns because of automation? There are. Maybe in the beginning that might be there, but automation is only going to give us space and time to innovate more, to think differently, to make sure that we have the people who are spending time on the researching new aspects, new technologies, new frameworks. And that's when we give them wings to fly around cybersecurity and compliance, which is again, people think and feel that it's a checklist, but it is not just a checklist. It's something which we need to have it as part of the whole ecosystem. I talk about PCI, talk about GDPR, talk about something else. Everything is concentrating towards security to make sure that we are adhering to certain set of practices that are needed to make sure we ourselves are secure. Another important aspect is monitoring, security monitoring, to make sure that we have the whole picture. And we are also making sure that we are having a right incident response process to security control validation, observability. And when I talk about all of this, there is a wonderful book by a friend, Aaron Reinhardt, and Kelly Shortridge. They've written a chaos engineering book. It's amazing book around how we can test different things for our applications from a security mindset, so that we are avoiding the failovers. At the same time, we are exploiting our own applications, testing our own application against the adversaries. And Netflix Chaos Monkey is like, which was built way back, like 10 years back, where people were not even thinking about chaos engineering, and they came up with Chaos Monkey to make sure that they have rigorous testing done before anything goes live. And observability equally complements the chaos engineering, wherein we can measure the internal state of systems, and understanding that how much effect it will have from the external things that are there. So, in theory, it is like, okay, let's understand that and observe. But important point to remember here is that observability is not just something that monitoring says that, okay, we are monitoring these environment, but observability is more of control plane observability. Now, what is control plane? Control plane is something which is the big picture, like your cloud account, and you have the visibility of the whole cloud account, and under that you have a data plane which is just reporting everything to the control plane. So having the big picture, not just that we need some servers to be monitored and that's all. And at the same time, container serverless monitoring to application observability to network observability, so that we understand which traffic is going where, what traffic is coming in, our application is doing. Is there any attack that is happening on it? What containers are getting spinned up, and are they getting spinned up with the right set of image? So getting the right observability is very, very important, and it helps us in looking at the critical incidents and events, fixing those incidents in time, investigating the root causes, and making sure those investigations are reaching the right teams. Now, why that is needed? Because if that something similar happens again, we know that, okay, these are the things that we need to correct. These are the things that we need to take a look at. And repeat the whole process, which we all know. And that's when it is becoming part of the huge DevOps cycle, or AppSec pipeline, or DevSecOps pipeline. But can we succeed just with people selling technologies alone? No. We can have people, we can have the best of people, we can have the best of process, we can have the best of technology. But if we don't have the right culture, it is never going to succeed. And that's when we need to involve every one of us in the different security activities which are there, making sure when we are communicating with different departments and resources, we are communicating that what we are, who we are, what are we trying to do, what all applications we have, what all frameworks we are using, what versions we are using. And as I said, embracing the automation is the key. And there are things which might not go right at the right, but then what we can do is we can create security champions in different teams who can actually vouch for us, who can actually understand security to a point wherein if we explain something to them, they can take it to the teams and start spreading the word. Now, when that happens, cross killing automatically comes as part of the culture, which helps in empowering DevOps to deliver better and faster, and making sure that there is nothing that we are blocking. Because I remember stopping a go live because there were critical issues. But now that's not the time when there are multiple releases going in a day, going in a week. So it has to be part of the everyday process. Now, when that's part of the everyday process, it becomes as a ownership change. It goes top down to bottom up, wherein everyone has to accept that yes, this is needed, this is what my responsibility is, and this is how I'm going to tell everyone about it. So without that, it is not going to work. And it is a team sport. Without being involved as a team, it is never going to work. Now, let me show you something very interesting. So let me go ahead and share. Um, okay. Jack, let me know are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Perfect. Now let me show you this. So this is the basic Azure DevOps pipeline that I'm trying to create. And why I picked up Azure, because I'm trying to experiment with Azure pipeline to AWS pipeline. You'll see me floating around things with on the cloud specifically. So this is what I have, wherein I have created an organization, and these are multiple organizations that I have. I can actually what I can do is I can create a project under that. So I have created this project, and if you see that there's nothing inside that, but what I can do is I can go to pipeline. I can see that do I have a pipeline? I do have something which is failing. Now, what I can do is I can set up a new pipeline. I can go to maybe GitHub and pull up few things from there. So give me 1 second. So I have a lot of things here. I am going to pick up Java Goof. I am going to I'm going to use YAML files. I'm going to go ahead and write master. Okay, 1 second. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. Now, oh, 1 second, sorry. So when I'm going to use it, it is going to deploy. Or I can use a start pipeline, which is just going to use it from my code itself, wherein I have a YAML file which it's going to use. So this is basically a step wherein I'm trying to automate pipeline, and I have some steps listed here that how exactly it should look like. So it should trigger the master, have an Ubuntu, and then run a hello world, and it should echo, which I'm going to go ahead and run it. Okay, this is like a basic, easy pipeline. So running a pipeline is super easy, but running what to or knowing what to run is the most critical part. So I'll show you another thing while it's trying to run. I'll go ahead and go to pipeline while it's running. I'll create a new pipeline. So I'm going to put up another repository of mine, which has like a whole pipeline script. And so this is the GitHub repos that I have. You can just use these pipeline .NET Core or AWS Core pipeline to Pixie CRS. So Pixie CRS is easily available. Just go to OWASP DevSlop or Pixie project, OWASP Pixie project. You will find it. Now I'll click here. Okay. So if you saw that, it actually took me to GitHub. So there are times when it needs my permission to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and approve and install, and it's going to go ahead, redirect back to Azure, and it's going to do the authentication again. For some of the things it does, but most of the pipelines it generally don't ask me for re-authenticated. Um, Now, if you see this, this is a YAML file and it starts with mod security. Mod security is the core rule set being used with a WAF. So mod security is a WAF, open source WAF, and it is using the core rule set project by OWASP because we wanted to have that. And then it's starting the containers to jobs. So there are multiple jobs that I've defined and all of the things there. But how about, okay, this is one thing, but can I have my own tools as part of it? Can I have something which can help me here? So I'll just go ahead and run it. It's going to run it. What I can do is let me go to my pipelines. Java Goof has run. I'm going to go ahead and see. This is run. Okay, one second. Let me open up this. No. So I'm going to go to my old pipeline, which ran fine because there was nothing. But if I want to add something to it, if I want to edit this pipeline, so I'm going to edit this pipeline because I want a third party component. This is like a plain file. Now I'm going to, before executing the script, I'm going to go ahead and add a tool, which is like I can add a task. So what do we want? We have a huge problem with the third party dependencies. So I have a favorite tool called dependency check. What happens to then? Okay, I'll search with OWASP. How come? Oh, so there is an issue. Okay, I'll tell you what is that issue. Now I'm going to close here. I'm going to go here, project settings. I'm going to leave here. Did I tell you that we can have extensions as part of it? No, I didn't tell you. So as part of the extensions, we can embed multiple extensions here. Mm, Let me install it at the org level, then the project level. So I'm going to go to organization settings and I'm going to go to extensions. Now here, multiple extensions can be used. Specifically, I'm a huge fan of open source components. So I'm going to go to the marketplace and I'm going to search for OWASP. Okay, so OWASP dependency check is free. I'm going to go ahead and get it for free. So this is how we can leverage the different extensions that we have, and it takes a couple of seconds to spin them up. I'm going to go back to my settings while it's happening, and I'm going to go to extensions and see what it shows me. Okay, it's loading. Install. So it's going to install it on my whole organization. So any project that I'll use, it will just go ahead and install that. Now let me go back to the organization. I can go ahead and use it, and if I refresh, extension should be installed here. Yes, it's installed. So any other extension, if we want, we can go ahead and use it from maybe, let's go ahead and check what all extensions do we have. So let's go ahead and check Snyk. So there is a free tool here, and then what we can do is we can maybe check Zap. Like Zap is one of my another favorite tool. So I can go ahead and install any of the plugins. So I'm gonna go ahead and use it, get it for free, and it's gonna install. Now while it's installing, I'm gonna go back to my homepage. I'm gonna go back to my project. I'm gonna go back to my pipelines, and I will go ahead and use this pipeline because this is like the simplest one. And while the Pixie is running, I am going to edit my pipeline and add as a task. Before executing the script, I'll add it. So I can define where exactly I want to do it. So here, dependency check, I can define the project name to scan path, all of this, and I can go ahead and add it. So it will be done. Similarly, once I run it, it will run it. Every time I want to run any of those external tasks, I can run it. This is like one great piece wherein I can just embed the open source tools to commercial tools as part of my pipeline. I can run it smoothly. The same case is with AWS pipeline, and same case is with any other pipeline that we run. That it is easy to use, it is easy to leverage, and it is easy to experiment with multiple things that are there. Now, let me go back to my presentation and see. Yeah, let me see what else is there. Okay, perfect. Now, okay, here. So we need to make sure that we are preparing our umbrella. I think you can't see my screen properly, right? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. What happens with, okay, it should be fine. Yeah. So we need to make sure that, thank you. And we need to make sure that we consider security as part of everyone's responsibility. And when we are embedding as part of the life cycle or DevSecOps cycle, we educate people. Why are we doing it? And it is very, very important to educate and share the knowledge, because we can't just assume that somebody is going to do it because it's forced upon them. No, it is not possible. And we need to accept some risk, but make sure that we address those issues on time. There are some references that you can check out. And yeah, that's about it. We can reach me on Twitter. My DMs are open. You can reach me anytime on my LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to have a discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you. It was wonderful to be speaking here and talking about DevSecOps pipeline.
Awesome. Thanks, Vandana. That was a really cool talk. I think we'll wrap up the YouTube stream now. There's no comments in there, so we'll finish it there. Thanks for attending, everyone. If you'd like to join in the post-stream discussion, click the link to join the Discord server. It's in the YouTube comments, and we're on the AU SID voice channel. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe, take care, and we'll see you